let's talk Super Bowls. And as you can tell from this title, I do think that it's a little bit. I don't think this is going to be any kind of clickbait by any means, because I could do like a prediction video, leave you to the very end, but I'd rather give you what my prediction is and explain in depth with what my thought process is and determine if after the fact that my prediction was wrong. If you haven't looked at the thumbnail or just clicked on like a link that I posted on my Instagram, clearly I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this Super Bowl. And we're going to have one major anomaly, one side or the other, whether it be Jalen Hurts is one of the few run-first quarterbacks, I would say, or a quarterback that runs versus a quarterback that can. No, I didn't explain that correctly. I would say a running quarterback versus a quarterback that can run is the difference between Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. And the other anomaly is you would have Patrick Mahomes, who is at 5, but top 5 most paid quarterbacks. Usually, if you haven't known that, most quarterbacks, if they get a major contract that's in the top 5 range, I don't know what the specific record is, but you don't win the Super Bowl. And I think that it's more likely that Patrick Mahomes breaks that anomaly because he is an anomaly of himself. He is the exception to any kind of rules of football. And I'm not going to sit here for 12 minutes explaining to you why I feel like it's the Chiefs. I'm going to keep this relatively short and sweet so I could get on with my day for the most part. But I do feel a couple ways about this game because I've gone back and forth. And I want to make it very clear, even though I've come out on this video and have said that I think the Chiefs are going to win, I'm not confident in this pick because of how dominant what the Eagles bring to the table on the front 7 and on their offensive line. We saw Lane Johnson shut down the defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa. I mean, absolutely shut him down. By all means, you have the Brock Purdy situation and you had to face Daniel Jones. So, like, the Eagles' road, though they dominated, they did their job, they did exactly what they needed to do, it wasn't the most difficult road. And this is why I am a little concerned about what the Eagles can face when we go against the Chiefs, because they have not been punched once. They have not had to take a punch to the face. And when we have seen teams coast to the Super Bowl and they haven't had to deal with any kind of stress or turmoil leading up to this, I mean, I can't remember a time when the Eagles had their starters in. Like you had the Gardner Minshew game against the Cowboys. You had the Giants game when you had your backups in. But I can't remember a time when they had to face true adversity against a really, really good team. And I think it's just as important for the Chiefs to start fast because they're going against probably the fastest starting team in the entire NFL, because the Eagles are the best first drive team in the entire league. So if they come out and they score a touchdown and they get comfortable, that is probably the worst case scenario for the Chiefs, because you want to make sure that at least for a quarter and a half, you rattle this Eagles team. You make them feel uncomfortable, because we saw when they faced the 49ers, even though that was the best defense in the entire playoffs, like you see that the Eagles offense can be slowed down a little bit, especially when that defense is as good as it is. And it is not at the same level of what the Chiefs bring to the table, but they do have a game record, not on the outside, but more on the inside. So as much as I love Jason Kelce, and a lot of people are saying he's potentially the greatest center of all time, I don't have any stats to back that up on, but that's what media is pushing, especially with the Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce agenda going on. He has his hands full. The entire offensive line has their hands full with a guy like Chris Jones, and he's going to have a career game. But I think the true X factor in all of this is Isaiah Pacheco on the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, because you're going to have to be able to not only run the ball, but be able to get those swing passes. We saw the way that the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl was Damian Williams. Damian Williams should have won the Super Bowl MVP because they were able to run the ball. And I think the play style that they had back then is eerily similar to what they are doing right now. So a guy like Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon are going to have huge games against a very tough front 7 that the Eagles provide. And I think they can do it. I think that they could do it. I think that they could have a better push because the offensive line is the healthiest unit on this entire Chiefs team. I think that, yes, Patrick Mahomes is dealing with injuries. The wide receiver room is dealing with injuries. But I think Patrick Mahomes is one of those quarterbacks that we've talked about. Like some of these guys, can they do good with not a lot around them? Not to say Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, who else? McCole Hartman. All these different guys. Like, not to say that they are discredited as wide receivers, but I mean, they used to have Tyreek Hill. Not to mention you have Travis Kelce, who is just such a dominant player, who's going to have to make things happen in the middle of the field. He's the king of being able to find soft spots in the zone. So I think it'll be very interesting, specifically with how much the Chiefs end up doing motion offense. Because when I was watching Media Day, there was a lot of questions about, specifically from Theo Ash. By the way, no way he ever sees this video, but fantastic job reporting. He was asking some really interesting questions. I had a lot of interest into hearing the answers, even if the players didn't fully answer them. The Eagles do not use a lot of pre-snap motion on the offense. And I know I was just talking about the Chiefs' offense, but here I'll get to my point. That defense practices against that kind of offense. I'm sure they're just as used to pre-snap motion, but I'm sure they're also used to just matchups. And I think what they're going to try to do on the Chiefs side of things is use pre-snap motion to get better leverage on certain matchups, specifically outside of James Bradbury and outside of Darius Slay. They're going to try to get in the middle of the field. And I'm sure the Eagles are prepared for that, but I think they are more set with a guy like Juju, who I think is a really good possession guy who tends to handle zone coverages way better than most. You have Travis Kelce, who is probably, arguably, one of the best, if not the best tight end of all time. I would still say it's Rob Gronkowski. I'm not going to discredit Tony Gonzalez either, but he's shooting his name into that conversation with how dominant of a tight end he is. And he's really good with just being able to give one look to Patrick Mahomes, say, hey, I'm going to hedge to the inside, and you're going to throw the ball about 5 yards in to the left side because that outside linebacker pushed a little bit to the right on his own, and I'm going to get us a good, simple 7 yards. Like, little things like that. I apologize if you had to hear that Discord notification. It just started blowing up for some reason. By the way, join Player's Choice Discord, and I might make a Discord myself if I ever get a big enough following for any of this. But to keep things going, I think... I've talked so much about the Chiefs' offense against this team because when I've seen the Chiefs in the Super Bowl twice now, the winning way was them running the ball. The losing way was when everything was on Patrick Mahomes' shoulders. Not to mention the defense gave up a lot of points, and I think that 31-9 loss to the Buccaneers. And they're going to have their hands full against this Jalen Hurts team because this offense is going to want to exploit matchups. And I think specifically the biggest matchup that they're going to have to try to exploit is the edge rushers. See if Miles Sanders or Jalen Hurts are going to be able to make the right reads, because I'm sure read option is going to be one of the more popular things. You have the RPOs. And how well can they handle the RPOs when you have a big receiver that could push your corner out in that inside 5 yards? He could be super physical. Then you have Miles Sanders, who's shifty. Jalen Hurts, who is just, he could squat 500 pounds. He could take a defensive end at least a couple extra yards, and every yard matters in the Super Bowl. Guys like Dallas Goedert are going to have to be able to run free. Like, these little things are going to happen. But if you were to ask me what I think will happen, I think that Isaiah Pacheco gets at least 50 yards to be able to make this game a little bit more lively, get those swing passes, have this good blend. And I think what they're going to try to do is not just rely on the run and not just rely on Patrick Mahomes, but this blend. And I think the best guy and the guy that I trust to be able to pull that off is Andy Reid. And I think Andy Reid gets his revenge against his former team. I love Jalen Hurts. I love this Eagles team. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this. But if I were a betting man, give me the Kansas City Chiefs. And thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment. Leave us like. Let me know what your Super Bowl predictions are. Let me know what your favorite prop is. Because in my opinion, Jackson Mahomes 1.5 TikToks, slam the over. Thank you so much for watching.